Today we are going to talk about HIPAA compliance. So you have been studying about HIPAA compliance for quite some time. Tell us about what it is.
So HIPAA stands for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. It's a federal law that is designed to protect patient health information. So if you're in the US, if you're collecting or if you're handling patient data, then you must comply with the HIPAA regulations.
Got it. So, most of our users are Google Forms users, right? What does it mean in the context of Google Forms? What does HIPAA mean in the context?
So let's say if you're using Google Forms to create patient intake forms, then you are collecting patient health information from your users, right? This requires you to comply with the HIPAA regulations. If you're using your personal account to create a Google form, then it will not be HIPAA compliant. If you're using your Google Workspace account to create a Google form, then you can sign the BAA with Google to make sure that you are HIPAA compliant.
Got it. So you're making 2 points. One is that only if it captures personal health information, you need to worry about HIPAA complaints. If it's any other form, if the form does not capture any of this information, then you don't need to worry about it. Is that
That's
correct?
right. Yes, that's right.
And got it. And the second one is the product that you use itself should be HIPAA compliant, which means Google if you're using Google Workspace from your personal account, it's not HIPAA compliant. But if you're using with a proper paid Google Workspace account, then it can be made HIPAA compliant. Is that correct?
So there are two aspects that are important for HIPAA compliance. One is whether the product that you're using is HIPAA compliant. Two, the way you're using the product, does it make HIPAA compliant, right? As an example, you have Google Forms, which you can create using a personal account. And you can create the same Google Forms using your Workspace account, right?
Right.
The one that you create using your personal account is not HIPAA compliant. The Google Forms that you create using your Workspace account is HIPAA compliant because you're going to sign a BAA. And it's not just the tool, but if you look at Google Forms, it gives you the ability to create a form to collect any data that you need, right? When it comes to HIPAA compliance, you have to make sure that you meet the HIPAA security rule and the HIPAA privacy rule, right? The HIPAA privacy rule, it outlines how you can collect data, how you can use the patient data, and how you can disclose information if required, right?
Right.
Now, when you're creating a Google form, the first thing that you have to keep in mind is, do I need to collect this patient data from the users, right? Which means you need to make sure that you limit the collection of patient data to the bare minimum that is absolutely required for that particular need, right? Second, you need to get the necessary consent for disclosure, right? This means if you're creating a patient intake form, then you may have to get signatures for informed consent, notice of privacy practices, right? Now, you also need to make sure that you clearly specify the privacy practices that you follow. It could just be a link in the form, or you could even add it as part of one of the sections in Google Forms, right?
Right.
So this covers the privacy rule. Now, when it comes to the security rule, it is about having the necessary safeguards to protect the health information. Have you implemented the necessary access controls to ensure that only the allowed users can access the data? In Google Forms, you can add a user. The user will be able to edit and he will have complete access over the form, right? But if you sync the data to Google Sheets, then you have the ability to have granular control. So you can specify if someone can just edit or view.
Right.
So you have the ability to set permissions for Google Sheets, right? Of course, by default, Google Forms gives you the ability to enable login, which means only authorized users can log in and access the data that you got.
Got it. So you made 2 points. One is that you need to get consent, which means that you typically need a signature. And the second one is you need to have fine-grained control over what you expose to the users, right?
Right.
The sensitive information or protected health information needs to be handled differently. Now, Google Forms does not have a signature and also does not treat any of the fields differently, right? How do I solve that in Google Forms?
Right.
And as you
So
mentioned, Google Sheets has some of these fine-grained privileges, but Google Forms does not seem to either give me the signature feature or fine-grained control over.
right. So if you look at Google Forms, when you collect the data, it has the ability to automatically send an email notification to the user, right?
Right,
But Google Forms does not give you the ability to customize this email.
right,
So if you create a form for patient intake, where you're asking the users for the patient name, patient, let's say phone number, address. Now, all of this information will be sent in the email.
right.
Because it does not allow you to customize this email, now you can choose to not send this email to the user.
Mm,
But unfortunately, this impacts user experience, right?
right,
Now,
right,
whenever you fill a form, you obviously want to know if you have filled it correctly and you want a copy of it, right? So in this case, you need to have manual processes in place to control how the email notifications are sent.
right.
The second aspect is, let's say, when you're trying to collect a patient intake form, there are standard fields that you already have. You have information about a patient which you want to pre-fill so that they don't have to enter the same information again, right?
Right,
If you're trying to use Google Forms, you have the ability to pre-fill answers in the form by passing
right.
these values as URL parameters, right?
Correct, correct.
But unfortunately, when you use this feature, you're exposing the data in the URL, which
Right,
is not the best way to do, right?
right,
So there are certain limitations with how you can use Google Forms.
right,
We talked about signature, which is a requirement. So if you're creating a patient intake form, you obviously want the users to, sign that they have reviewed the privacy practices, and
right,
uh, you know, they also have to provide informed consent for these, right?
right,
This is not a feature that is available in Google Forms.
right,
Now, the alternative is you have add-ons such as FormiSign that allows you to add signatures in your Google Forms and collect the signature as part of the form submission, right?
right,
And you also have other add-ons which allows you to customize the email notifications that are being sent, right? So you can also use those add-ons instead of trying to use the default Google Forms feature. The only thing
right.
that you have to keep in mind is if you're using an add-on, you're using a third-party tool. So just like you are reviewing the tool that you're using, in this case, Google Forms, you also make sure that you review any third-party tool that you use on top of Google Forms before you use it.
Got it. So you said there are three things that are needed, if I remember correctly. One is e-signature. The second one is email does not show the protected health information. The third one is the prefill does not show the protected health information in clear text in the URL, right?
That's right. Yeah.
How do I, because none of these are available in Google Forms, how do I solve that?
So first, let's look at the privacy rule, which is about getting consent for disclosure, right? So when you're creating a patient intake form, you want to collect signatures. So you can use the FormiSign add-on for Google Forms,
Mhm.
which allows you to add the signature option as part of the form and collect signatures when a user submits it. Right?
Right.
So that takes care of the privacy requirement. The other two are related to the security rule. So you want
Right.
to make sure that you have the necessary safeguards for protecting the health information. So if you're sending an email, you don't want to include patient health information. And when you're trying to pre-fill, you want to make sure that you don't expose the patient information as part of the URL. Right?
Right.
So you can use the HIPAA add-on,
Mhm.
which is designed to make your forms HIPAA compliant. What it allows you to do is when you create a form, you can automatically identify the patient health details and mark those fields as protected health information.
Right.
Now, when you mark these fields as PHI, the add-on automatically ensures that when it sends an email, this information is masked.
Right.
Similarly, when you're trying to export the data, this information is automatically masked so that you don't have this data in the exported sheets or CSV file. If
Right.
required, of course, you have the ability to export it. When it comes to pre-fill, of course, you can choose not to use it, but it would impact patient experience because you're essentially asking them to enter the same information again and again. The HIPAA add-on that we talked about, it allows you to create a unique pre-fill link without exposing the PHI.
Right.
So this takes care of the three issues that we have with using a Google form for patient intake or any healthcare specific use case.
Right. Perfect. So you already wrote a article about it, right? So we'll probably link it to the show notes. Great. So the last question I had, because a lot of these small clinics and healthcare startups don't have the workspace account, the paid workspace account. They might be using personal Gmail. Is there any solution for them? How do they make sure that they are HIPAA compliant?
Right. So HIPAA product that we have, it comes with a set of pre-built templates that you can use to create your forms. These forms are created using the Google Workspace account that are HIPAA compliant.
Right.
So if you would like to create a HIPAA compliant form and still use Google Forms, then you can use the templates that are available as part of this product.
Great. Okay. So because we have signed up BA with Google Workspace, and these are HIPAA compliant, and these forms are created in our account, this automatically becomes. Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much, Vipin. See you next time. Bye.